This afternoon, a former stand-up comedian was tasked with humouring America's president into supplying more weapons of war. This is Vladimir Zelensky's third visit here this year, amid this difference of opinion. The Ukrainian believes that providing Tomahawk missiles now will force the Russians to negotiate.
President Trump, sir, do you believe you can convince Vladimir Putin to end the war in Ukraine?
While Donald Trump apparently still hopes that the threat of providing them will do the job instead. The Tomahawk is usually fired from ships or submarines. Each one costs $2.5 million. That's a lot cheaper than maintaining a fighter jet, and it has a range of over 1,000 miles. The Ukrainians are more keen on these land-based launchers, which went into service last year. But Mr Trump, having said he was thinking about it, is now claiming America's own stockpile can't be depleted. It's the kind of prevarication which keeps Mr Zelenskyy guessing.
We just had a call, as you know, with President Putin.
And yesterday, America's president made it pretty clear in a phone call to Mr Putin that he was using the Tomahawks as a gambit to get the Russian leader's attention.
I did actually say, would you mind if I gave a couple of thousand Tomahawks to your opposition? I did say that to him. I said it just that way. He didn't like the idea. He really didn't like the idea. No, I said it that way. You have to be a little bit lighthearted.
Trump's meeting with Putin in Alaska in August produced no breakthrough. The risk is that the rematch planned in Hungary for a couple of weeks' time won't either, because America's attempts to impose deadlines for a ceasefire have come and gone with no more sanctions applied.
With this potential delivery of Tomahawk missiles, I think this could serve as a significant pressure and leverage from the US's side to signal to Russia that unless they demonstrate that they have some real commitment to this process, US will change its positioning and it will actually scale up the support for Ukraine.
If anything, the tempo of Russian attacks has increased, with the Ukrainians claiming over 300 Russian drones and missiles were fired at energy facilities and civilian targets on Wednesday night. So Mr Zelenskyy is seeking help from America's energy secretary in restoring power and talking to American defense companies about what more they can provide. The Ukrainian knowing that America making money is the key to Donald Trump's heart. And if not money, the Nobel Peace Prize itself.
I don't know of anybody that ended wars. I ended 8 of them, and it's going to be 9. I think we're going to have this one done, hopefully soon.
Well, that meeting in the White House between Mr Trump and Mr Zelenskyy and officials on both sides is still going on in the cabinet room. Let's get the latest from Kate Fisher.
You know, as this war grinds on, Krishnan, these meetings between Volodymyr Zelenskyy and President Trump, this one, the third this year, the stakes just get higher as they greeted each other. They did linger for the cameras for a moment, a stark contrast to that meeting in February when President Zelenskyy left the White House having been berated by Donald Trump. He began by congratulating him on his success in bringing a ceasefire in the Middle East and said he hoped that that momentum would mean that he would also help to bring an end to the war in Ukraine. Donald Trump, though, has just spoken to Vladimir Putin, and he said that that would be one of the topics of conversation between them because he said he's hoping now that perhaps these Tomahawk weapons that Volodymyr Zelenskyy wants so much, maybe they won't be needed, he feels, after this conversation with Vladimir Putin, because he now believes that Vladimir Putin also wants peace. Of course, President Zelenskyy very sceptical about that. Let's hear what Donald Trump had to say just a few moments ago.
I think they're both doing a great job in that sense. We have to get it done. We've got to take some of the hatred of each other. You know, they don't like each other. I say that in front of President Zelenskyy, but I say it in front of President Putin, too. They have tremendous bad blood. It really is what is holding up, I think, a settlement. I think we're going to get it done, and we have to make it long-lasting.
You know, Donald Trump was also asked about these Tomahawks and about the fact that he said in the past the US needs these to protect itself. And he did say, yeah, that was a big concern for him. And also he acknowledged what a huge escalation this would mean in the war against Ukraine. All topics he said he'd be discussing with Volodymyr Zelensky. As for Zelensky, he, as I say, complimented Donald Trump, pressed and kept pressing to say that, you know, we cannot do this without pressure on Vladimir Putin. And he said essentially the most important thing he needs from Donald Trump, aside from the Tomahawk weapons, is security guarantees. Here's what he had to say.
We understand what we need to push Putin to negotiation table. And as I said previously, so we are ready to speak in any kind of format, bilateral, trilateral, doesn't matter, just peace. This is important.
Now, Volodymyr Zelensky also said that he'd spent yesterday speaking to big American energy companies and weapons companies about how they could help Ukraine to rebuild. And he was looking forward to discussing that further with Donald Trump. They are still talking now as we speak. This was supposed to be a working lunch meeting in the cabinet room without any press. But as is often the case with Donald Trump, the cameras are in and they are talking in front of the world's press. We will find out, hopefully, after the end of this meeting, what the next stage will be. But certainly Volodymyr Zelensky will be very skeptical about the fact that Donald Trump now believes that Vladimir Putin is ready to find a ceasefire. And that will be, I think, the crux of the discussion between the two of them.
Kay Fisher in Washington. Well, joining me now live from Odessa is Dr. Hanna Shelest, Director of Security Programs at the Ukrainian think tank Ukrainian Prism. Thank you for joining us. Has President Putin fooled Donald Trump?
It's difficult to say. As for now, probably the Budapest meeting, if it would happen, are definitely said as how successful was this telephone call. But one thing is for sure, that each time we are hearing from the White House that a new type of the weapons can be delivered to Ukraine or the new sanctions introduced, immediately it is the signal from Moscow that they would like to have a call with the US president, because they understand that each time it gives a certain hope to Donald Trump, and at least for 2-3 weeks they have the postponement for the improvement of the Ukrainian capabilities when we speak about the military equipment, or it is just taking off, postponing the sanctions against already weakened Russian economy. So in this case, yes, Mr. Putin was the winner of yesterday's conversation, considering the statements we heard from Washington.
Do you think the ceasefire deal with Israel has made a difference here to how Donald Trump sees things? You know, that he thinks, oh, well, maybe we can do another one. I also wonder whether you think there's a significance in what he said in the Israeli Knesset about peace through strength, and whether that might be an argument for a Tomahawk deal with Ukraine.
Surely, you are absolutely right in both of these statements. First of all, that the agreement that been reached in the Middle East brought a certain inspiration, if we can say like this, for Donald Trump. Because just a few weeks ago, we heard more and more statements that he is extremely dissatisfied with Russian president actions after the Anchorage meeting, because it has been the significant increase in shooting Ukrainian critical infrastructure, energy infrastructure, and just civilian residential areas. So he understood that he was fooled. And with the certain hope and inspiration, he is not getting out from this peace process. He would like to make a second attempt, probably, or the third attempt, depending from where do we start. And in terms of the peace through strengths, that is very positive for Ukraine. Because previously, if we go for example, February, March, April, from Washington, predominantly, we heard the statements that encourage Ukraine for the certain concessions. We haven't heard anything about how to make Ukraine stronger to defend itself and to have a stronger position at the negotiation table with Moscow if negotiation starts, let's say, tomorrow. Now, there is a certain hope that probably the different advisors around the president explained that Putin is much more willing for a conversation when Ukraine is able to attack the Russian territory, when we are able to be more effective than the energy sanctions of the European community.
Just very briefly, could you explain what Zelensky is proposing in terms of drones? Is he saying, give us missiles and we'll give you drones?
Yes, there is the agreement that is currently, it's been for months in the discussions. As you know, Ukraine is one of the leading in producing and research and development of the new types of the drones and the drones warfare. So now it is over the Ukrainian companies who are ready to propose their technologies. That is much more important even than the production in the modern warfare, technologies and experience for the American companies. And the United States, unfortunately, is not so good in the drones warfare as for now. They didn't have the same experience within the last 3 years. So that can be a really win-win solution. Ukraine can share our knowledge, our technologies with the US, and the US companies can provide us with the long-range missiles, something what Ukraine is missing.